Hey everyone, it's Charlene. Today we're going to go over a really fun stencil outlining technique. We're using the Simon Says Stamp Ornament Builder stencil along with a Copic multiliner, a 0.3, and an Emboss It embossing pen. Let's get started. Today I'm using a repositionable spray adhesive. This I'm spraying on the back of the detail portion of the stencil. That's because there's lots of little small spaces in the stencil, and I just want to make sure that it stays down well when I am using my Copic multiliner pen. So I'm starting out by drawing the outline of the ornament that I want to use. And today I decided I'm going to use the same ornament 3 times with different patterns. So now I'm just making sure that the detailed portion of the stencil is overlaid and that I have it really well adhered down with that repositionable spray. This is really easy to get off of your stencils when you're all done. You just use a little bit of rubbing alcohol. I have mine in a sprayer, and I will link to that along with all of the other items I'm using today down in the description. So be sure to check that out. I use it all the time. So I've outlined my little detail portion there over the top of the ornament, and then I can just pull up both stencils and position the stencil where I want my next ornament to be. When you're outlining like this, you're sort of doing your own masking. And what I mean by that is when you are drawing the outline, you are drawing it only to the point where the prior item was. So you got to do a little bit of planning in advance and think about how you want your stencil to appear on the finished card. So now I'm going through and I'm just again making sure that's down well, and I'm drawing in the little details. Same thing here. You just want to make sure you're not drawing over whatever other image you've put down, because that will show up. Now, the nice thing about this Copic multiliner is that you can use alcohol ink markers, and you're not going to get any smudging or have any wait time while you're waiting for the multiliner to dry. You can pretty much go right in with your Copic markers or whatever type of alcohol ink markers you have and draw, and it's ready to go. The thing I really love about this technique is that it looks like a hand illustrated or a stamped image, and you can use whatever size of multiliner you would like. I used a 0.3 because I wanted to have a finer line when I was going in and coloring. But these Copic multiliners, they come in lots of different sizes, and the package I linked to down in the description has several different sizes in it. So you could do a 0.5 or even a 1.0 size multiliner when you are filling these in. So again, just going in, adding those little detail pieces. I love how this looks. So cute. So I did kind of a wavy line and then circles and then the stripes. And now I'm just hand drawing in a cap for the ornaments. There is a cap item in the stencil, but I decided I would prefer to just hand draw it in. If you guys are enjoying this video, please do hit that subscribe button, the notifications bell, and the like button. I would really appreciate it, and it does great things for me and my channel so I can keep bringing you lots of really fun content. Coming in, I'm just using the side of the stencil with my multiliner to create the line for the ornaments. That's the string that's holding the ornaments at the top. You could also put a little loop at the top if you wanted to. I didn't think about it at the time, so I'm just going in now and I am hand drawing in a little bow. So it looks like they are tied on the tops of the ornaments. Off camera, I did color these with my Copic markers. I used shades of blue-green and blues because I thought it would have a nice, pretty cool Christmas look to it. So now I'm going to show you the second way to do this outlining technique, which is also a lot of fun. I really enjoy trying to find ways to use my embossing powders because I think they just are so magical and so fun when I am going in and heating them up. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make a very similar version of the card, but I'm going to use, instead of the Copic multiliner, I'm going to use an embossing ink pen. And so the ink that's in this pen is an embossing ink, so it stays sticky and it stays wet for longer. That way you can put your embossing powder on top of it and heat emboss. Now I did clean my stencil off camera before I started the second card, and in hindsight I do wish that I had actually gone back in and sprayed some more of that adhesive spray on the back, because my little fine details are kind of moving around as I'm trying to do the outline with the embossing pen. Keep in mind, when you're doing any kind of heat embossing, you are going to want to use some type of anti-static powder tool before you start putting down your embossing ink, so that way when you add your embossing powder, it doesn't stick all over your card. When you're doing this kind of outline technique, if you're using multiple images, you're going to want to plan out in advance what colors you want them to be, and again, try and think of visualize what you want your final product to look like. So you're going to go in and you're going to heat emboss each image as you finish it. So here I'm just using some gold superfine detail from Ranger, and I'm going to come in and heat that. Now I don't have a huge collection of embossing powders. As I get to know them more and see the different kind of characteristics of them, I do find that I wish I had purchased some that weren't superfine detail. But for this technique, as well as for words and things like that, the superfine detail works very well. So now I'm coming in and I'm going to do the second ornament. Again, just make sure you're not drawing over the first ornament that you've drawn, so that way you aren't going to have any embossing powder overlap. Again, with the detail portion of the stencil, and you'll see later on in the video, I do decide to go back and fill in these circles. I think it looks better with the circles filled in. The embossing pen doesn't have a super fine point tip, and actually you can buy different kinds of embossing pens. Some have a brush tip, some have a bullet tip. The one that I am using for this video has a bullet tip, but it's still not a super fine tip. So you are going to have a little bit of a thicker line. So you'll want to keep that in mind when you are picking out the type of image that you want to use with this technique. So once I've got all those little circles filled in, I'm going to go in and I'm going to heat emboss this one. For this, I am using superfine detail in silver, and I love how this looks. Coming in, and I'm going to use my heat gun and get that good and melted. And if you have any little bits of embossing powder, again, a flat brush that is dry works really well to remove little stray pieces of embossing powder. So I've sped up all the portions of my video where I'm heat embossing, so it's not this fast. It does take a little bit longer to heat emboss than what you see here in the video, but really you just want to keep your heat gun on there long enough to melt the embossing powder and then move on. That's all there is to it. If you've never heat embossed before, it's really not that hard. It just takes a couple of times to get used to how the embossing gun works, and then you should be set and good to go. So for this last one, I am coming in and I do decide right away to go ahead and fill in those little lines rather than trying to outline them because of the size of the embossing marker. And you're going to see it looks really neat with them filled in as well. So this just is a little bit time consuming, but it's actually a pretty quick card altogether, because once you get all of the heat embossing done, you're pretty much done with the card. And it's very clean and simple, but it's very striking because you have all of these different colors of embossing powder, and it's so shiny and it's very pretty. I really like how this card turns out. I also really like the other card. I can't decide which one I like more. You have to let me know down in the comments what you guys think and which one of the cards is your favorite. So coming in, getting those lines nice and filled in. I really like these embossing ink pens. Like I said, they do come in different sizes. They also come in different colors. So I'm using clear, but there is also an embossing pen that comes in black. And as I'm getting to use these more and more, I like using both of them for different kind of purposes, whatever I'm trying to come out with. I also like to use them to freehand draw on my cards, which is really fun. And I have a video that I put out that was on 5 different ways to heat emboss. So I'll link that up in the top right hand corner. It's a really fun video, and I go into a little bit more detail there on how to hand draw to do some heat embossing to add little details to your cards. It's really fun. So I did this one in copper, and so we have the gold, the silver, and the copper, and then I did go over the entirety of the ornaments with some Wink of Stella, and I also filled in the little caps at the top, as well as you can see the circles on the middle ornament, I did fill in and go back and heat emboss those as well. So I'm using one of my favorite dies here. I'm using a stitched rectangle die from Simon Says Stamp. I just really love the stitching detail on these dies. I use them very frequently in my cards. And so I'm doing the same thing here also for the ornament. You could, if you don't have that type of die, you could also hand draw a dashed line around your cards. I've done that as well. And I really like that little additional detail that it brings your cards. It kind of creates this nice little border frame that makes your eye naturally be drawn to your image that's in the center of your card. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and put the cards together. I am making US A2 sized cards, which are 4¼ inches by 5½. And I'm starting out with a sheet of paper that is 5½ inches by 8½ inches. And then I'm scoring it at the 4¼ mark. So I'm using a Score Buddy Mini, and I don't know how I lived without this little product here. It's fairly inexpensive for what it is, and it makes scoring and folding card bases so much easier. Before, I was using a ruler and I was hand scoring them, and it was much more time consuming, and the result was not nearly as good. So that's a product I recommend taking a look at. The other one that I definitely recommend taking a look at is a guillotine trimmer. So I've had the sliding trimmers, I've had all kinds of different trimmers, and I've never been super happy with any of them. And so I finally decided to bite the bullet and buy a guillotine trimmer, the Maxi from Holtz. And I am so happy that I did. I get nice clean cuts, and it works every time, and I don't have any issues. So, and the measurements are accurate. That's the biggest thing. All of the other trimmers that I have had, the measurements have not been accurate. So maybe it's just me, it may not bother other people, but it drove me crazy that things were off by like 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch, stuff like that. So I am using a stamped sentiment here from a Hero Art set that I've been using a lot lately that I really, really love. If you've seen any of my other videos, I've used the large Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays die a lot lately. And this is a sentiment from the stamp set. This is one of the most versatile stamp sets I have, I think, for holiday cards. I can use it in all kinds of different ways. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that. So you did see I cut out some matting for my cards in gold and black glitter cardstock. And I've cut those so there's about 1/8 of an inch all the way around the main card panel. Now I'm putting on the back some Crafty VA foam to pop up the panel, and I've just cut that down so it's slightly smaller than the main panel. And I'm using some Gina K Connect glue in order to adhere the Crafty VA foam to the panel, and then to adhere that to the glitter cardstock. Just taking a second here to make sure I get my placement really nice. I love that thin little matting on these types of 1-layer cards. I think it looks the best on these 1-layer cards. I love it. And you know, you could pop it up with EVA foam, you could use foam, adhesive squares, whatever you have. I just like the way that the EVA foam looks from the side of the card because it's one solid piece rather than gaps where you have like little adhesive squares. I also find it easier to apply, and I actually find it to be cheaper in the long run. Now I'm just going ahead and I'm taking those panels and I'm adhering them to the card base. And you can see now I have a little bit of a white border. Off camera, I did go ahead and use some silver satin baubles from Trinity Stamps, and I have them all aligned where I want them to be. If you know anything about me, it takes me forever to pick where to put these, so I just do it off camera. But I'm coming in and gluing those, and then I'm going to come in with some Wink of Stella, and I am going to highlight the little detail items that I've drawn on the ornament. So I'm going in and doing the lines, the little circles, and then the light colored lines on the third ornament. And it just adds a little bit of fun sparkle to the card. I use Wink of Stella frequently. It's kind of this very, very, very fine glitter dust that is in a clear kind of adhesive, I guess, because it dries completely clear. You only see the little shimmery bits, and I love it. It's so fun, and If you know anything about me, I love to bling things. So, and who doesn't love bling? Just a little bit of, shininess is always nice. So here's the finished heat embossed version. You can see I also added some liquid pearl bows up at the top there in, I believe, the pearl color. So those are the finished cards, guys. I'm really happy with them. I love that they are one layer. Again, hit that like button, notification bell, and I will be back again soon with another video. Thanks. Bye.